Pay attention to the girl walking out of Riverside High School's main entrance at 3:42 p.m. on April 16th. Her name is Jillian Burke. She's 16 years old, wearing jeans, a green hoodie, and carrying a purple backpack covered in band stickers. She's just finished volleyball practice. Inside that backpack are her geometry textbook, a water bottle, and her phone, battery at 67%. She planned to walk the 7 blocks home, finish her homework, and watch a movie with her younger brother. Now, watch the security camera feed as she exits through the front doors. She walks down the front steps, turns left on Harrison Street, and heads north. Her house is a straight walk, 7 blocks, 12 minutes. The timestamp reads 3:43 p.m. Security cameras from a corner convenience store capture her walking past at 3:47 p.m. A residential doorbell camera shows her crossing Maple Avenue at 3:51 p.m. That is the last time Jillian Burke is seen on any surveillance system. Within 2 hours, her mother would call the school in a panic. Within 4 hours, police would be canvassing the neighborhood. And within 6 days, investigators would discover that the friendly neighbor who'd offered her a ride home was not who he claimed to be. This was not a random abduction. It was a carefully planned crime committed by someone who'd been watching her walk home from school for months. Jillian Burke was a sophomore at Riverside High School in suburban Portland, Oregon. She was an honor roll student, played on the junior varsity volleyball team, and volunteered at the local animal shelter on weekends. She was close with her family. Her mother, Ann Burke, worked as a nurse at Providence Portland Medical Center. Her father, Patrick Burke, was a mechanical engineer. Her younger brother, Liam, was 12. The Burke family lived on Ashland Street, a quiet residential block lined with maple trees and modest single-family homes. Jillian had walked the same route home from school since freshman year. Ann and Patrick had always considered it safe. The neighborhood was well lit, heavily residential, low crime. On April 16th, Jillian stayed after school for volleyball practice, which ended at 3:30 p.m. She changed in the locker room, texted her mother that she was heading home, and left the building at 3:42 p.m. She never arrived. Ann Burke expected Jillian home by 4 p.m. When she didn't appear by 4:15, Ann texted her. No response. She called. The phone rang 4 times and went to voicemail. By 4:30, Ann was concerned. She called the school. The main office confirmed volleyball practice had ended at 3:30. Coach Patterson said Jillian had left on time. Seemed fine. Mentioned walking home. Ann called Patrick. He left work immediately and drove the route Jillian would have taken. He saw nothing. No sign of his daughter. No indication of trouble. At 5 p.m., Ann called 911. Portland police initially treated it as a runaway situation. Teenage girl, out of contact for 90 minutes, probably met up with friends. Ann insisted that wasn't possible. Jillian didn't run away. She didn't have conflicts with her parents. She had plans for the evening. Something was wrong. At 6:30 p.m., officers began canvassing the route between Riverside High School and the Burke residence. Detective Marcus Liu was assigned to the case at 7:45 p.m. He was a 14-year veteran of the Portland Police Bureau, currently assigned to the Missing Persons Unit. He met with Ann and Patrick Burke at their home and reviewed the timeline. Jillian had left school at 3:42 p.m. Her last text to her mother was sent at 3:39 p.m. Practice done. Heading home soon. Her phone had been active until approximately 3:55 p.m. when it either powered off or lost signal. Liu requested cell tower data and began pulling surveillance footage from businesses along Jillian's route. The convenience store at Harrison and 5th captured her walking north at 3:47 p.m. A residential doorbell camera on Maple Avenue showed her crossing the street at 3:51 p.m. She was walking alone, appeared relaxed, earbuds in, phone in her hand. After 3:51 p.m., she vanished. Liu's team canvassed the area between Maple Avenue and Ashland Street, a 3-block stretch with minimal camera coverage. They interviewed residents, showed Jillian's photo, asked if anyone had seen her or noticed anything unusual. Most residents hadn't seen anything. A few recognized Jillian. They'd seen her walk past regularly. One elderly woman mentioned she'd seen a white pickup truck parked on the street around 3:50 p.m., but couldn't describe the driver or provide a plate number. Liu expanded the search. K9 units tracked Jillian's scent from the school to the corner of Maple and 7th, where the trail went cold. By midnight, Jillian Burke had been missing for 8 hours. The investigation intensified. Portland police issued a missing person alert. Jillian's photo was distributed to local media. Volunteers organized search parties, combing parks, wooded areas, and vacant lots. Liu's team interviewed Jillian's friends, teachers, and coaches. Everyone described her the same way: responsible, kind, focused, no boyfriend, no conflicts, no risky behavior. Her social media showed a normal teenage life, posts about school, volleyball, her dog. Liu pulled her phone records. The last activity was at 3:54 p.m., a partial text message to her friend Ashley that was never sent. The message read, "Can you believe Mrs. Peterson assigned?" The phone went dead mid-sentence. Cell tower data placed her phone's last ping near the intersection of Maple and 7th, exactly where the scent trail had gone cold. Liu requested surveillance footage from every camera within a half-mile radius of that intersection. On April 18th, 2 days after Jillian's disappearance, Liu's team made a discovery. A traffic camera at the intersection of 7th and Oak, 2 blocks from where Jillian was last seen, captured a white Ford F-150 pickup truck driving south at 3:56 p.m. The vehicle's windows were tinted, but the angle of the camera captured a partial license plate, JDM4. Liu ran a search for white Ford F-150s with partial plate JDM4 registered in Oregon. 12 matches. The team began checking each registration. The 4th vehicle on the list was registered to Jerome Davis, a 41-year-old Jamaican immigrant living on Cedar Lane, 2 streets away from the Burke family. Liu pulled Davis's background. No criminal record. He worked as a maintenance supervisor at a commercial property management company. He'd lived in Portland for 8 years. Liu requested a photo from Davis's driver's license. He then showed the photo to neighbors on Jillian's route. 3 residents recognized him. One said Davis lived somewhere in the neighborhood. Another said she'd seen his truck parked on the street regularly. The elderly woman who'd mentioned seeing a white pickup on April 16th was shown the photo. She confirmed it was the same truck she'd seen parked near Maple and 7th that afternoon. Liu obtained a warrant for Jerome Davis's residence and vehicle. On April 19th at 6 a.m., the tactical entry team arrived at Jerome Davis's home on Cedar Lane. Davis answered the door. He was calm, cooperative. He invited the officers inside without hesitation. The home was tidy, minimally furnished. Davis lived alone. He'd been divorced for 3 years, no children. He worked steady hours, kept to himself. Officers searched the house methodically. Nothing appeared out of place. The kitchen was clean. The living room contained a couch, a television, a small bookshelf. The bedroom was orderly. The basement was different. It had been converted into a workshop and storage area. Tools lined the walls. Boxes were stacked in corners. And in the back, behind a rack of shelving, was a locked door. Officers asked Davis what was behind the door. He said it was storage, old furniture, holiday decorations, things he didn't use. Officers requested he unlock it. Davis hesitated, then he complied. Behind the door was a small room, approximately 10 by 12 feet. The walls were lined with soundproofing foam. A single mattress lay on the floor. A bucket sat in the corner. Bottled water and packaged food were stacked on a shelf, and sitting on the mattress, bound with zip ties, was Jillian Burke. She was alive, dehydrated, terrified, but alive. Paramedics transported Jillian to Providence Portland Medical Center, where her mother worked. She was treated for dehydration, minor abrasions on her wrists and ankles, and acute psychological trauma. Toxicology tests revealed traces of sedatives in her system, benzodiazepines, administered in quantities sufficient to keep her disoriented and compliant. Jillian could speak, but her account was fragmented. She remembered walking home from school. She remembered earbuds in, listening to music. She remembered a white truck pulling up beside her. A man leaned out the window. someone she recognized from the neighborhood. He said her mother had been in a car accident and sent him to pick her up. Jillian panicked. She asked where. He said Providence Portland Medical Center. She got in the truck. She remembered a chemical smell, a cloth pressed over her face, and then nothing until she woke in darkness. Jerome Davis had held Jillian Burke captive for 3 days. Davis was arrested and charged with kidnapping, aggravated assault, administering a controlled substance without consent, and unlawful restraint. The interrogation lasted 7 hours. Davis was represented by a public defender. He refused to speak initially, invoking his right to silence. Investigators presented the evidence, the surveillance footage, the license plate match, Jillian's testimony, the room in his basement. They presented his internet search history, pulled from his laptop, searches for how to soundproof a room, chloroform alternatives, teenage walking routes, and Portland school schedules. They presented photographs found on his phone, images of Jillian walking home from school, taken over several months, images of other teenage girls walking in the neighborhood. Davis finally spoke. Through his attorney, he claimed he'd been trying to help her. He said he'd seen her walking alone and worried for her safety. He said he'd intended to protect her. The investigators stopped the interrogation. The claim was absurd, contradicted by every piece of evidence. Further investigation into Jerome Davis revealed a disturbing pattern. Davis had lived in 3 different cities over the past decade, first in Miami, then Atlanta, then Portland. In each city, he'd lived in residential neighborhoods near schools. Portland police contacted law enforcement in Miami and Atlanta. Both departments had unsolved cases involving missing teenage girls who disappeared while walking home from school. In Miami, a 15-year-old girl named Jasmine Rivera had vanished in 2018 while walking home from Key Biscayne High School. She'd never been found. In Atlanta, a 17-year-old girl named Courtney Williams had disappeared in 2020 while walking home from North Springs Charter High School. She'd never been found. Davis had lived within 2 miles of both schools at the times of the disappearances. FBI agents joined the investigation. They obtained warrants to search Davis's storage unit, his workplace, and a second property he owned in rural Clackamas County. At the rural property, investigators found a buried storage container, a modified shipping container, 8 feet long, 4 feet wide, buried 6 feet underground. It had been outfitted with ventilation, a battery-powered light, and restraints bolted to the walls. Forensic analysis found DNA evidence from 2 individuals inside the container. The DNA matched Jasmine Rivera and Courtney Williams. Neither girl was found alive. Jerome Davis was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in addition to the charges related to Jillian Burke's abduction. The trial began on November 2nd of the following year. Jillian testified. She described Davis's approach, the lie about her mother's accident, her decision to get in his truck. She described waking in his basement, the terror of not knowing where she was or what would happen. She described the 3 days she spent in that room, the visits Davis made bringing food and water, the calm, almost friendly tone he used when speaking to her. Forensic experts testified about the DNA evidence found in the buried container. Digital forensic specialists presented Davis's search histories, the photographs on his phone, the meticulous planning evident in his online activity. The prosecution presented evidence that Davis had been surveilling Jillian for at least 4 months. He documented her schedule, her route, her routines. He'd prepared the room in his basement weeks before her abduction. Davis's defense team argued diminished capacity and delusional disorder. They presented evidence of Davis's difficult upbringing in Jamaica, poverty, childhood abuse, witnessing violence. A psychologist testified that Davis exhibited symptoms of obsessive-compulsive disorder and attachment disturbance. The prosecution acknowledged Davis's traumatic background. Lead prosecutor Sharon Nguyen was direct in her closing argument. Trauma may explain behavior, but it does not justify it. Jillian Burke had done nothing to Jerome Davis. Neither had Jasmine Rivera or Courtney Williams. They had simply existed in his proximity, and he had decided they belonged to him. The jury deliberated for 9 hours, guilty on all counts. Jerome Davis was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for the murders of Jasmine Rivera and Courtney Williams, plus an additional 40 years for the abduction of Jillian Burke. Jillian Burke spent 6 months in intensive trauma therapy following her rescue. She could not return to Riverside High School. Too many memories, too much fear. She transferred to a private school across town that allowed her to complete coursework remotely. She did not walk anywhere alone for over a year. Her parents drove her to school, to appointments, to friends' houses. When she eventually began venturing out independently, she carried pepper spray and a GPS tracker her father had purchased. The nightmares persisted for 2 years. Therapy helped, but recovery was slow. 3 years after her abduction, Jillian graduated from high school. She enrolled at Portland State University, studying criminal justice. She wants to work with law enforcement, helping develop better protocols for finding missing children. She speaks publicly now about her experience, advocating for improved surveillance systems in residential neighborhoods and better education for teenagers about predatory tactics. She lobbied successfully for Oregon House Bill 3104, which requires schools to maintain comprehensive surveillance systems covering all exits and mandates that footage be retained for 90 days. The law also provides funding for municipalities to install cameras along common student walking routes. The law is known as Jillian's Law. Riverside High School upgraded its security protocols. Additional cameras were installed covering all exits and the surrounding blocks. A volunteer safety patrol program was established, with parent volunteers monitoring student departures during peak hours. The Burke family still lives on Ashland Street, though they installed a comprehensive home security system and cameras covering all approaches to the house. Ann Burke keeps a photograph on her desk at the hospital. It's from Jillian's high school graduation. Jillian in her cap and gown, smiling, flanked by her parents and brother. Ann looks at that photograph every day. It reminds her how close she came to losing her daughter. It reminds her that Jillian survived. The families of Jasmine Rivera and Courtney Williams were finally able to hold memorial services. Their cases, cold for years, were closed. Their bodies were never recovered, but DNA evidence provided the answers their families had desperately sought. Jillian Burke walked out of school planning an ordinary evening at home. She walked into a nightmare instead, but she walked out. That's what matters most.